So at this point, we're doing the lab on AAA, establishing local AAA solutions. Objectives include configuring of local A for which authentication and authorization schemes are to be used, and then establishment of a domain named Huawei, also implementation of privilege levels for authenticated users. Excuse me. So this is the topology. So generally we have R1 and R2. They have been interconnected together, for example, over the internet. For my topology, I've just done a direct connection between R1 and R3. Yeah? Okay, so let's look at the instructions here. The scenario really is R1 and R3 being deployed on the network and to provide remote authentication services using AAA. The company requires that both routers are made part of the domain Huawei and that the telnet service is made available to users with limited privileges once authenticated. Okay. So on step one, we are simply giving the devices names and configuring the IP address. So let me do that just very fast. R1, here's the sysname, R3. Okay. So we go ahead to 000. We give it an IP address 11.84.111.1/24. Then we go ahead and also give an IP address to this interface.
Check your IP.
Yes?
Check your IP.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm going to check that in a short while. So 119.84.111. I think this other one is supposed to be .3, eh? 24. Let me just change this. I think this should be .3 here. This should be .3. So let me just confirm, display this. So here I have the correct address. Let me also confirm. Display this. Okay, so I can just overwrite it using the IP address command. So 119.84. Thank you for that. .111.1/24. Okay, we can confirm. Can we ping R3 111.3? Good. So we can be able to ping R3. Okay, so let's look at the next step. Step number 3. To verify connectivity between R1 and R3, which we've already done. Step number 4. Perform AAA configuration on R1. So we know AAA stands for authentication, authorization, and accounting. So we want to create an authentication scheme and an authorization scheme on R3, on R1. So on R1, we're going to use the AAA command, then create an authentication scheme and give it a name. Choose the authentication mode as local. Also create an authorization scheme and give it a name. And also create a mode. Choose the authorization mode as local. So we do that on R1. So here we go into AAA like that. Then we do authentication scheme Then we give it a name. Let me just call this, let me call this junior, or for the junior stuff, junior. Then I can do authentication mode, then question mark, so that we see the available authentication modes. As we learned in the theory class, it can be through the Huawei terminal access control server, or it can be local authentication if the router is doing it. We can also use non-authentication if we don't want users to be authenticated, or we can use a radius server. So those are the four available. Actually, there are three authentication schemes: local, non, and when you're using either the Huawei or the radius protocol, then we call it remote authentication. So in this case, we want the authentication mode to be local. So I'll simply write local like that. Then I can quit and go to authorization scheme, sorry. Authorization scheme. Let me also call it junior. Then the authorization mode. Let's look at the available authorization modes. This is a very common question in the exam. So again, we have local authorization. So authentication is proving that you are who you say you are, most of the time using a username and a password. Authorization is, okay, you have proved that you are who you are, so what can you be able to do or not do depending on your level? So really, authorization is what you can be able to do most of the time after you have been authenticated. So we have non-authorization, we have local, when we are using the router or the switch to authorize you. Then we also have remote, when you're using the Huawei terminal access controller server for authorization. And this one here, if authenticated. So I'm giving you this as a reading assignment. Please make sure you understand what this means, what this authorization mode means, if authenticated. So go and read about that. In the meantime, here we are going to specify the authorization mode as local. Okay, so now we are, after we are done with that, let's display this. We can just see that we've created a junior authentication scheme and also a junior authorization scheme. Remember, on AAA, we talked of domains, and you can do a maximum of 32 domains, but you have two default domains, the default domain and the default admin domain. So you can only create about 30 remaining domains. So that's also important to remember at this point. Okay, so now we want to configure R1. We want to configure R1 as a telnet server, then also create a domain called Huawei. For me, I'm going to call the domain intern, so that all interns can always be added to that particular domain. Then we'll create a user. We'll create a user and apply the user to this particular domain. So let's go ahead and do exactly that on R1. So let me quit from AAA. So the first thing we want to do is to enable this as a telnet server. So telnet server enable. Then so telnet has already been enabled, it's okay. Then we go into AAA and create a domain called intern. So instead of Huawei, I'm just choosing intern. Then for the authentication scheme, I want to use junior and authentication. So that one was authorization. So for authentication scheme again, I want to use junior, like that. So once you're done with that, then we are done with the domain intern. So we are done with the domain in turn. The next thing we want to do is to create a user that belongs to that domain. So let's do local user, then the username for this particular person. For example, let me choose Caris. So Caris at intern, meaning I'm an intern. Then password, password cipher, Huawei 123. So I've created a user called Caris, who is in the intern domain. So I use the @ delimiter there. Then I go ahead and excuse me, and enable telnet service for this particular user. So local user Caris at intern, then service type telnet. Then after that, I go ahead and do a privilege level, set a privilege level for this intern. So I do a privilege level 0. So privilege level 0 really means that they can do almost absolutely nothing. So that is privilege level 0, as we are going to see in a short while. Okay, so let's go ahead and check. So after configuring that, so configure R1 as the telnet server using AAA authentication. So now for the telnet, we create the virtual teletype interface and we specify the authentication mode as AAA. So here we come and do user interface VTY 0 to 4. Then authentication mode, if I do question mark, space question mark, it can either be AAA or password. So this time we want to do AAA. So I do AAA like that, then quit. So after that, we are going to go to R3. We're going to go to R3. So verify whether the telnet service on R1 has been established successfully. So we're going to go to R3 and telnet R1. And then we're going to see whether we're going to get the prompt that gives us that ability to telnet to R1. Okay, so let's go ahead and do telnet 119.119.84.111.1. So you see I'm being asked for the username. So for the username, you have to specify it together with the domain. So Caris intern, password is Huawei 123. So you see, I have telneted into R1. So my prompt now has changed to the prompt of R1. So I'm remotely accessing R1. And I can be able to do a number of things. For example, going to system view. But now, because of the privilege level, which is 0, I cannot use certain commands like system view. So if I do a system view, I'm unable to, because I'm being authorized. So due to my level, the system does not understand this particular command. So I cannot be able to do system view when I telnet to R1. So we can actually change the privilege level so that you can see that in a short while. So generally, operations are restricted as user privilege are limited to level 0. Okay, on step 5, we are generally supposed to perform the same configurations we've done on R1. We also do it on R2. Simply create a user, choose an authorization and an authentication mode, and so on and so forth. So really, we are not going to repeat that. We're not going to do that. So let's go here on observing the results of the AAA configuration. So we can use the command display domain name, then the name of the domain, in order to see the settings that we've done on that particular domain. So let me do quit here. So I can do display domain name intern. So we created a domain called intern. So we can be able to confirm its state as being active. We can be able to see the default authentication scheme. The configured authentication scheme is called junior. We can also be able to see, for example, the accounting scheme. So for accounting, we know that we don't have local accounting. We only have remote accounting. So, and non-accounting. So we can do accounting on this particular router. So we have authorization scheme, which has the name junior. So those are some of the things that you can see. If we had already a server, we could see the details, or a Huawei terminal access controller server, we could also see the details there. Okay, other than that, we're also supposed to confirm the details of that particular user we created using the command display local user, then the username keyword, then we go ahead and do that. So let's just do that on R1. So display local user username Caris at intern. So we just want to see the details of this particular user. So some of the things we can see, we've configured a password for this person. Their state is active. We can also see, for example, the privilege level. Oh, it's actually supposed to show here. It's supposed to show as 0 because we configured it as 0. I don't know why it's not showing, but it's actually supposed to show. So it's supposed to show the privilege level as 0, as you can see here, but it is okay. Okay, so in R3 we didn't create the domain, which is okay. So right now I want us to change the privilege level of this particular user, Caris. So we go to AAA, we go to system view, then AAA, then local user Caris. Then we go ahead and choose the privilege level. Privilege level, for example, 3. So when we change the privilege level for this guy, for example, at management level, now if they telnet from R3, let me just quit. So let me telnet again to R1. So I do the username and the password. So now I'm in R1. So now I can be able to do everything. I can be able to go to system view. I can be able to go to the interface of R1 and change, for example, the IP address and so on and so forth. So you should always control. You should always control the privilege level of different users in order to ensure that your systems are secure. So now I'm able to do all these things because we've changed the privilege level from 0 to 3. 0, I can't be able to do anything actually. So that is the end of this particular lab. Asanteni sana. Does anyone have a question?